You are experiencing the Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast.
It is April 8th, 2026, and welcome to the Knuckleheads of Liberty, where we are bringing the people and the organizations fighting for liberty around the country and in your region and discussing news events from a liberty perspective. Today, we're going to talk about issues of Sharia law bans. That's sort of starting to become a thing in the United States that's being talked about. And then we're also going to talk about prediction markets. Another thing, and who knows, maybe we'll predict some things about some of these other stories. I don't know. And finally, something that deserves some predicting, I guess, that might be helpful is the California governor's race, because that's something we're also going to talk about, how race has sort of come to the center of the California governor's race. And finally, in our Knucklehead Noise Patrol, we're going to talk about some of the things you probably just can't sort of miss with some of Trump's quotes with the war recently. So we'll get into some of those. But before we do any of that, let me introduce you to our panel. With us today, we have Leon Ward Brathwaite, Last Word in Liberty. He is a retired engineer in the state of California. And my name is Jason McPhee, and I'll be your host today. And Leon, you're not actually in the state of California today.
No, I'm not. I am in Cedar Rapids, Iowa.
Okay. Well, yeah. How's Liberty doing there, Leon? Is it better than California?
I would have to say so. It's a farm state, and it's mostly a red state, and they're making some good strides here in Iowa. One of the things that I'm really pleased about it is education, K through 12 education, and maybe we can talk about that at some other time. That was not part of our program today, but you were seeing some really good things here going on in K through 12 education in Iowa.
Yeah, and we're on the clock today, so like you said, we're probably not going to get to that. I mean, I guess if we just got all of our math from California's education, we might not be able to figure that out, and we just might not even be able to tell time. I don't know. but anyways, let's jump into the topics. So I guess what we're going to kick off the show. Well, we always start with quote of the day, and it's usually something that I think is going to be appropriate to some of what we're going to be discussing. And with the Sharia law topic, I thought it would be interesting just to invoke Jefferson, because that is, what we're talking about religion here and how it may conflict with liberty. So here we go. This is the quote from Thomas Jefferson. It said, "The constitutional freedom of religion is the most inalienable and sacred of all human rights." So, I think this is really important to talk about this, because ultimately it fits right into our First Amendment, for one thing, and that's where Jefferson gave it prominence. He said, let's just revisit the First Amendment here. It says, "Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof." And of course, I guess one of the issues is, what happens when somebody's religion starts to cross over into your other liberties? And this is where maybe they're we'll have some interesting discussion on that, I think, with the Sharia law topic. But Leon, what are your thoughts on the whole Jefferson quote here?
Well, I think I honestly believe freedom of religion is vital to our success as a nation, but it must be free and it must be religion. And one of the things I guess we'll have to talk about is whether some of these things that call themselves religion, are they really religious organizations, or are they more political movements? But I think Jefferson is correct. Freedom of religion is vitally important. If we want to worship any God, we should be able to do so. If we choose to worship no God, we should also be free to do so. And it's a very, very important right. I think it is one of the three legs of any successful nation is political freedom, economic freedom, and spiritual freedoms. That spiritual freedom being the freedom of religion, free to choose where your religious beliefs should stand or fall. So I think Jefferson is right, and I like the quote. I think it's an important human right that people shall find their peace wherever they choose to do so. When we are forced is a different matter.
Yeah. And I guess this is, one of the big things, because I mean, obviously, freedom to just think, right? I mean, because that's most of what religion is, just what you believe inside your head about reality. And to be able to want to be able to constrain that, I guess, at least as far as what somebody thinks, there can be no more fundamental freedom of I mean, essentially what you're trying to get to with freedom of speech is freedom of thought, right?
Yes.
And that's where you're going. But there are some, I guess, religions and maybe very religious people who want to impose their beliefs on everybody else, and I think that's where some of this starts to cross over. So I think this will make for a good exploration. I haven't thought too deeply about this, but some of this has been coming up in the news lately, and let me a second. So DeSantis recently just signed a law in Florida the other day, and that's why I first caught the news that it was what he was calling an anti-Sharia law, and it's not just the DeSantis. And you can even say see his picture here has a cross out on Sharia law, like a no Sharia that he got on the podium here, but. That's just one of a few efforts here, because we're going to talk a little bit about Texas. They have actually pushed something a little bit earlier than this because they have had some, I guess, Muslim communities that have started to build up, and one of them is a place called Epic City. And so we're going to get a little bit into that as well as we get into the discussion. But, the issue really is what is it about Islam that I guess has people concerned, that why they think they need these particular laws? And so let me bring up a video that kind of hits some of the issues of Sharia law that they're saying that these are bans essentially on Sharia law that they're trying to get at, and sort of how it's practiced sort of in some of the countries maybe that people are coming from, and maybe some of the differences about where they're coming to. Hopefully we'll be able to tease out a little bit of that. But anyways, at least this will give people a flavor of what we're going to be talking about.
Stoning for adultery, amputations for theft, death for apostates, and second-class status for Christians and Jews. This is life under Sharia law, the Islamic system practiced in countries like Iran, Saudi Arabia, and Great Britain. Yes, Great Britain. There are reportedly some 85 Sharia courts now operating there, with Islamic judges ruling on cases ranging from financial to marriage disputes among British Muslims.
So most of that was what was being practiced back in, I guess, the old school countries. But as far as in Britain, it's, like they said, it's more of an issue for marital law and stuff like that. But let's see exactly how far this has spread in England.
Sharia courts operate outside of British common law. Their defenders say the courts are legal under a 1996 Arbitration Act that allows people to settle differences through methods of their own choosing. These courts have popped up in several British cities with large Muslim populations, including Birmingham, Bradford, Manchester, and London.
How are some of these Sharia issues, or I guess Islamic preferences, popping up here in the United States?
And here's your alarm clock at the crack of dawn. No, this is not Cairo, Mecca, or Medina. It's New York City. And if you've been in the Big Apple lately, you may have noticed the Muslim call to prayer ringing out, especially during Ramadan.
Wow, that seems like a crazy way to wake up every morning. Is this really all about religion?
But this has nothing to do with spirituality. It is a projection of dominance. It is occupying the public square. That's it. The call to prayer in the Islamic world is debatable today. Many people are arguing that there is no need for the call to prayer to be broadcasted and bothering everyone, because we have alarms.
What about headscarves and issues of ID?
Talked to Lacey Tobosa, who says she was baffled by the situation. Tobosa was able to get her passport with a headscarf, so she couldn't understand why it was hard to renew her license at the county level. When Lacey Tobosa went to renew her driver's license in February, she said she was told to uncover her ears from her headscarf, or they wouldn't approve the photo. After hours of waiting and explaining her rights, officials gave Tobosa a provisional driver's license instead, which only allowed her to drive, but not use it as a form of identification.
So those are some of the, I guess, we saw a little bit of the sort of fire and brimstone stuff right at the beginning, but then we saw a little bit of the more conventional issues that have been coming up lately in this country. I did want to also play one more piece before we get too far into the discussion of Sharia law, because one of the biggest things we've seen is an issue with freedom of speech. It seems like that's the biggest conflict here, in the sense that if you make fun of somebody else, it's like, for instance, we have comedians that make fun of everybody. We have comedians that make fun of the president. We have comedians that make fun of Christianity, the Catholic Church, the Pope, all of these things. But if you make fun of Allah, some people get so angry they want to go kill people over it. And we've seen this happen, unfortunately, in most recently. The most infamous case of this was in France, with Charlie Hebdo, who was this was a news publisher, and they did a lot of political satire. And well, let me just show you the video, and so you can see what we're talking about.
He was by far the best-known editor at his tiny newspaper, and rather than shy away from controversy, Stéphane Charbonnier embraced it. Charlie Hebdo seemed to relish in offending everyone. The night after his office was firebombed because the magazine pretended it had been guest-edited by the Prophet Muhammad, Charbonnier was as blunt as always. And a year later, he had not backed down a bit.
We are provocative today. We will be provocative tomorrow.
Charbonnier told the French newspaper Le Monde 2 years ago, "It may sound pompous, but I'd rather die standing than live on my knees."
So that's who Charlie Hebdo was, and this is sadly what happened to him.
Terrified office workers scramble across a rooftop, while below, the final act in a 5-minute massacre. Shouting, "God is great," 2 hooded gunmen open fire. On the floors below, in the office of satirical magazine Charlie Hebdo, at least 10 people are slaughtered, along with 2 police in the street. As they fled, a wounded officer down on the footpath begs for mercy. One killer runs up and shoots him point blank. They head back to their car. A gunman shouts, "We told you we would avenge the Prophet Muhammad."
And of course, the part of the big thing is they did a political cartoon before that happened, in which they portrayed the Prophet Muhammad, and that has actually spilled over into this country. We've had issues of some satirists and cartoonists who are afraid now to show images of Muhammad. And some of the biggest examples of that is South Park, The Simpsons, and I believe The Family Guy. But South Park was actually the most brazen with it. And even now, you can't, even though they did several episodes where they showed the image of the Prophet Muhammad, and they actually had a funny spin on one of them where they said they were going to show the Prophet Muhammad after all this stuff happened, because South Park's been going on now for 20-something years, right? And this Charlie Hebdo thing happened a little over 10 years ago. And they said, you know what, we're not going to buckle to the censors, we're going to show him. And then at the end, they showed a clip, but they parodied Family Guy, and then they showed the Prophet Muhammad show up in Family Guy. Try and get Family Guy to take all the heat. So but even now, you cannot get some of those videos now, unless you already own them. They're censoring these things now. So this is, part of this free speech issue. And you could say, well, that's not necessarily against the law to publish those, but it is running into, people are worried about threats of violence, essentially. And so it's shuttering free speech. So anyways, Leon, I've been talking a while on this stuff. Before we get into Epic City and the anti-Sharia laws, let me hear your thoughts on some of this stuff.
Jason, free speech is one of the fundamental things that we as Americans, we in the West, hold dear to our hearts. We must be able to express ourselves. We must be able to put ideas in the marketplace. We must be able to be able to debate them. Good ideas will withstand scrutiny and they will survive. bad ideas will not. This was the principle involved in free speech and free expression. But now we have the rise of Islam in many areas in the West, in Europe, is quite prominent. Is happening here in the United States also, where we are seeing issues such as, can we make displays of Muhammad, or can we make fun of Islam, or can we say bad things about Allah? When we know quite nobody has any problems making fun of Jews, making fun of the Jewish religion, Judaism. We have no problem in making fun of God, Yahweh, or anything about Christianity. We have no problem in doing those things. We make fun of the Mormons all the time. I think there was a Broadway musical about the Mormons. There was not a single.
By the way,
was,
the
right?
South Park guys also did the musical, the Book of Mormon.
There we go. And there was not a single Mormon who went out and threatened anyone who produced that musical. But here we are. We have these people rising up within the Islamic faith who are telling us there are certain things we cannot think, there are certain things we cannot say because it offends them. But you cannot totally blame the practitioners of the Islamic faith, because this damn nonsense about censoring thing began on the campuses in the 1980s with the speech codes. I don't know if you remember those. Maybe I'm showing my age here. And we allow those things to permeate throughout our society. It is true, the Supreme
Leon,
Court.
with your age, does this go back to biblical times? Are we crossing into another? Sorry.
This is my beard. You know, it was down here, and I had to cut it off to not to hide my age. Yes, but the Supreme Court indeed have rolled back some of these speech codes. But we still have things like hate speech that is being permeated all over our society. The point is, if we as a country tolerate things like hate speech or anything like that, or if people are offended, we cannot say certain words, and we have done a show about that, if you do recall, Jason. Why are we now upset? Because people, practitioners of the Islamic faith, are now telling us, no, you cannot speak about Allah. You cannot make images of Muhammad. Why are we upset now when we invited this disaster into our midst? And this is a problem when we move away from our constitutional rights to accommodate other people and their offenses, that they can be offended by every little thing in our society. They are unwilling to debate their beliefs. Fine, if you want to believe what you believe, that's fine. I have no problem with you believing anything you want, but don't tell me I have to believe it too. Or don't tell Elian and my fellow citizens who don't believe in what you believe that they must believe what you believe, or they must shut up about it. This is completely in opposition to everything we know about free speech, in everything we know about our constitutional rights. So we have to do something about this, because what we are seeing is too much isolation, too much segregation, I should say, of our society, where every little group, in this case we are speaking about Muslims, every little group want to have their own little bubble where they can have their own little rights or no rights, and they also want to expand it upon outside their bubble, where they want to tell other people what to say and what not to say, what to think and what not to think. We cannot permit that in a free society. If we permit that in a free society, we are heading to that iceberg. I know I like to talk about this a little too much, but it's real. We are heading to that iceberg like the Titanic was. And if we don't do something about these things, we are surely going to end up in the same fate as the people on the Titanic.
Well, when you talk about these bubbles, and so I want to now kind of shift into talking about Epic City, because that's one where they've literally designed a law that's supposed to address, I guess, one of these bubbles that you're talking about here. But here's an example, though, from just in 2021. It's an article from CNN that talks about Michigan City gets ready to inaugurate first all-Muslim government. So, I mean, you are seeing concentrations that are high enough in some areas now where this is starting to become something where, you're starting to see things like maybe these calls to prayer and other things where if you get enough local people who want that, suddenly they can force some of these things onto everybody else. And so, but let's actually look at the case, though, of Epic City, because that's one where a law was, I believe it was passed either this year or last year. And, like I said, the Florida one was actually just passed a few days ago. But let me bring up the Epic City video.
Governor Abbott traveled to McKinney to sign a new law limiting property developments from excluding residents based on religion. Maria Guerrero has details on the governor's visit and the reaction from the Muslim community.
The ban on Sharia law in Texas is now strengthened.
The ceremonial signing met with cheers in McKinney. Governor Abbott flanked by lawmakers who pushed through HB 4211 in response, they say, to Epic City, a Muslim-centric community planned on the edge of Collin County, accused of housing discrimination.
So what exactly does the law do?
This law prevents them from creating no-go zones. It prevents them from selling or renting land only to people who follow Islam.
Collin County State Rep Candy Noble co-authored the bill, citing Epic City's own words.
They said, we will limit sales to only persons we believe will contribute to the overall makeup of our community.
It requires disputes to be resolved by Texas law and Texas courts, not Sharia law.
So what exactly is Epic City?
Marketing material for Epic City conveys the vision: more than 1,000 homes, apartments, sports fields, a school, and a mosque spread out right here across more than 400 acres in Collin and Hunt County.
There has been nothing but good intentions of these people concerning the development since day one.
From day one, it's been controversial. Those opposed accused development group Community Capital Partners of religious discrimination against non-Muslim Texans because it's a Muslim-centric community.
The idea that we have to wade through this many investigations, spend this much on lawyers, and spend this much time and angst going through it is shocking and disappointing to me.
And what are the federal government's findings on this so far?
A June 13th letter from the DOJ Civil Rights Division says the department is, quote, closing its investigation. An investigation opened at the request of Republican Senator John Cornyn, alleging it violated a number of laws like the Fair Housing Act. When Fox 4 asked the senator's press contact on Wednesday for reaction, we were told he wasn't available.
We, of course, have state laws that prohibit discrimination in housing sales as well. And so the state attorney general has been his right to make sure state law is being complied with.
David Cole is a constitutional lawyer and isn't part of this case, but says while there are multiple state probes still playing out, like inside the Republican-led state attorney general's office, the likelihood of those being dropped is greater in light of the federal findings.
And so it's kind of interesting because it's not like this is a normal city. This is something where people are coming together to form a community. And so it's kind of something of choice. And I guess we're kind of telling them they can't do it. And this is where it starts to get in a real gray area to me. It's, I mean, I don't know. What are your thoughts, Leon? Because to me, it seems like if I wanted to form a private club and we didn't want to invite other people in, it seems like we should be able to, but here we're saying that this Epic City can't happen. So I don't know, whereas it seems a little bit different than if you lived in another community and suddenly you hear the call to prayer coming out over the microphones. I don't know. I mean, what are your thoughts?
Well, this thing raises quite a number of issues, okay? And I'm against all forms of discrimination. I truly am, unless there's some rational basis for the discrimination, like between men and women, for instance, having separate bathrooms, that kind of stuff, which of course is something in our transgender discussions. But in this case here, we're talking about the potential discrimination against non-Muslims. Now, it is true, it is absolutely true that these are private organizations doing private things on private land, so the government should not have any say in the functioning of such an organization. I mean, I can see the argument there, definitely. However, we have seen what is happening in Muslim communities. Okay, they start to practice Sharia law. It's going on right now in Dearborn, Michigan. It's going on right now in Hamtramck, Hamtramck, I believe is the name of the city, also in Michigan, and other places throughout the country where there are high concentrations of Muslims. Now, I don't have anything against Muslims as a people, right? They are not really even a people. They are just people who choose to be part of the Islamic faith. I have nothing against them. That's their choice. However, where we see concentrations of Muslims, we see the development of Sharia law. It is something that we cannot ignore. So I don't know that we need any ban, such a thing as a ban on Sharia law. What I think we have to do is to go back and impose or say whatever you want, whatever word you want to use, the very fact that in our Constitution it says the U.S. Constitution is the supreme law of the land. So we cannot have any dueling legal systems operating within the United States, because Sharia law, when you really get down to it, is totally incompatible with Western ideals. It is incompatible, whether it's on free speech, whether it's on punishment, for instance, on theft, that which we'll talk about. We have a bunch of issues that we can show the incompatibility between Sharia and the U.S. Constitution. Well, the U.S. Constitution.
I did want to jump in real quick too, because one, we're coming up on the break for public access, but two, I did want to mention as well that when we talk about, the First Amendment's a little bit of a two-way street here, because it's saying, the government's not going to, prohibit the exercise of religion, but that also means that it can't force one on you as well.
Exactly.
Right? I mean, this is the issue. And if you're making laws that are saying, oh, now everybody has to hear the call to prayer, when they come up, or maybe there's something related to an identification law, possibly, that is going to be treated differently depending upon which faith you're on. And by the way, if you're watching us on public access, that's all the time we have for you here. But this conversation continues online at knuckleheadsofliberty.com. So go there to hear the rest of the conversation on this, the California ballot race, prediction markets, and some of Trump's interesting words about the war that we're in Iran right now. But anyways, back to the show. So Leon, back to you. I just wanted to be able to transition that.
Sure. So if we are seeing, I mean, what we really do need is to just make it part of our law, make it part of our nationwide federal law, or whatever you want to call it, state law, whatever you want to call it, that there shall be no foreign or international law used to make any determinations within the United States, because we already have something that does that. That is called the U.S. Constitution, which is the supreme law of the land. So we don't have to ban Sharia in particular, but we have to ban all international laws or any other foreign laws from having any sort of enforcement here in the United States. That is what we need to say. So if Sharia is of foreign origin, which it is, sure, then it has to go. Because we cannot have people living differently under different laws within the United States. That's against our very constitutional framework. Okay, so we can have if I'm living in Epic City, say for instance, I feel I'm bounded by the U.S. Constitution, and my neighbor next door might be a great guy, might be a great woman or whatever, and that kind of stuff, and they are bounded by Sharia law. We cannot have that in the United States. It's discriminatory to start with.
How is this different, though, than, say, an HOA, where you may have different laws regarding or rules regarding your property outside of an HOA, and then the inside of the HOA, suddenly it changes. Like you can post a sign for a yard sale if you're not living in the HOA, but if you're in the HOA, homeowners association, by the way, then suddenly you can't post except for a very narrow set of rules. I mean, isn't this sort of similar to that? If you knowingly buy into a community that has these types of rules established, I'm not saying, you know, that you get to stone people to death, but saying,
this was going to be my question.
Yeah.
If you're going to say this is just nothing different than a HOA association, I'm a part of two HOAs, quite frankly. If you're saying it's nothing different than that, then where do you draw the line? Where?
Well,
are we one day going to say, well, my neighbor could live under Sharia law, and if that means, well, in case of theft, an arm could be chopped off? We do not permit that here in the United States. Or in case of adultery or an accusation of adultery, as a matter of fact, well, we could stone the woman to death. And you notice, and that's the next thing under Sharia, if I'm not mistaken, you could stone a woman to death for adultery. You don't stone a man to death for adultery. And these kind of things. This is incompatible with our constitutional framework. While I would concede to you that there are some aspects of, say, for instance, like an HOA, some aspects of it that could be reflected in the building of a city, like Epic City in Texas. I will agree that there are some aspects of it where we could see some overlap in terms of where boundaries are being drawn. But this is not what's going to happen when you are talking about a totally different legal system, which my neighbor may have to live under, whereas I could live under the U.S. Constitution. I don't think this is a matter of choice. I don't think so. If you're willing to live within the sovereignty known as the United States of America, then the U.S. Constitution is the Supreme Court of the land, and we should all live by it, period.
Yeah. It does seem, though, like contractually, you can bind yourself in ways to other people that go beyond the normal laws. Like you could potentially bind yourself to a financial penalty that's much larger than what maybe a court would be able to impose on somebody for the same violation. You know, like if you decided to, you know, lend somebody something and you signed a contract, you say, hey, but if you don't give this back to me or pay this back to me, then, although there are usury laws, I guess, in some, maybe there are some of these things that have been, you know, pierced, but it does seem to me, though, that there probably are ways you can bind yourself through contract that you couldn't necessarily, that wouldn't be the same as just civil law, I would think.
Sure.
So,
sure. Yeah. Well, and I think you're making an important point that we cannot sign contracts. We cannot sign contracts, or we cannot agree to contractual terms that violate the law in any way. We cannot. Like, for instance, you could hire. Suppose I could hire a hitman to kill me. We cannot agree to contracts that where it violates the law.
Yeah.
Whether it's the state law or federal law. So I don't know how Sharia could work in a free society. Yeah. So I just say we don't have to ban Sharia. We just have to say the U.S. Constitution is the supreme law of the land, and this is what we all have to live by. Period.
And this is where, you know, if you said, you know, hey, look, murder is illegal, and then some group said, hey, our religion requires us to grab somebody's kid and once a year take him up to the top of a pyramid and sacrifice him to a sun god.
Right. There we go.
Our religion.
There we go.
You know?
Yeah.
Hey, wait a second. The Constitution is superior.
Exactly.
It's not allowing you to murder somebody else, right?
I mean, it's an extreme case you're saying, and I mean, I brought it up, but the fact of the matter is, this is absolutely true. We're going to draw the boundaries when you allow people to live by one set of laws. Yeah. So yeah, if somebody want my religion and say, well, I could go out and I could do whatever I want to a woman or do whatever I want to a kid, if that's my religion, it says so.
Yeah.
What?
But
this sovereign is what you're talking about? No, we cannot permit that. Period.
But I think this is where I guess we could do a better job, like you're saying, by just looking to, broader constitutional laws over the land. We don't need laws that say anti-Sharia. We just need laws that respect everybody's individual rights. And when we have those, then you will be in violation if you are a strict adherent to some sort of orthodoxy that calls upon you to violate other people's rights.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So you don't need to say, hey, we're specifically against this group. It's just an overall rule, and if we just enforce it, like this idea of the call to prayer, why should everybody be subject to that within a jurisdiction? That seems nuts. The idea that you get to force your religious idea on everybody else by blaring something over a loudspeaker at whatever time, I don't know, it's 6 a.m. or whatever time.
It's the crack of dawn, when the full sunlight.
Yeah. So, and like the guy said in the video too, look, those laws that people did that back then, they didn't have alarms back then. Now we have alarms today. You can all just agree upon a time and send each other a text message to say, hey, it's time to pray.
Get up, time to pray. And if people want to go do that and pray in the privacy of their home, nobody should stop them from doing this. But all of this though raises some very good points, because it is true, we know that the Islamic faith claims to be a religion, okay, and maybe it is, but it's clear they are also a political movement. It is also clear about that. I mean, because in Muslim majority countries, they basically go, well, it's different versions of the same Sharia law. They may read different Qurans, but they take all their teachings from their Sunnah, and the Sunnah is the teachings of Muhammad and the Quran, and this is what becomes law of the land. If you go into any Muslim majority country, even within countries that are not Muslim majority but go into parts where they are Muslim majority, you see where the Sharia is being practiced.
Yeah.
So the question is, and not only because here in the West, in most of the West now, we have boundaries between church and state. But in Muslim majority countries, we don't see those boundaries between mosque and state, because the mosque becomes the state and the state becomes the mosque. And each one of them rule over each other. So, well, essentially the mosque really rules the state, really is what it really is. So is it a religion, or is it a political movement?
Yeah.
And this is the question I think we have to answer.
Yeah, and I think you can clearly see that when both Mayor Eric Adams and now Mayor Mamdani are allowing this call to prayer in New York. Clearly this is a political move. This is something where they're, it's clearly not about treating everybody equally, about having one set of rules that keep people from violating each other's individual rights. It's literally about dominance of one group over another.
Yes.
But I feel like if we don't get off this subject, I pray that we'll finish in time. So let me get to our prediction market story. So we just had an issue with let me see here, my browser's dragging just a little bit here, but so we have this issue of prediction markets that are happening, and they're kind of like betting markets. They're a little bit of a gamble, but it's sort of about hey, what's going to happen in the future, right? And people are using them to bet on everything. Well, we've got a little bit of video to show people how this is starting to run afoul of laws and why some people want to regulate these things. So let me bring up the video here.
People are betting big on more than sports. Nowadays, you can wager on everything from pop culture to politics, even war. While Arizona's attorney general calls it illegal, the feds say the state has no business trying to regulate prediction markets.
This is a really big development that the Department of Justice is jumping in here. And they're not just suing Arizona, but also Connecticut and Illinois. All three of these states have sent cease and desist orders to prediction markets such as Kalshi. Now the feds are stepping in and telling the states to step back.
So this begs the question, what exactly are prediction markets?
It's a billion-dollar industry, and it just keeps growing. We're not talking about sports betting, but prediction markets that allow people to place wagers on politics, economics, and sports. Instead of betting against the sports book, you're trading contracts tied to specific outcomes.
So what are the states saying about it?
The Arizona Department of Gaming tells us it's gambling.
There is no meaningful difference between the underlying activity. For Arizona consumers, it looks exactly the same.
That's why Jessica Rosa with the State Department of Gaming sent cease and desist letters to prediction market operators, including Kalshi. Arizona, one of more than 24 states to take that action.
So how far will the states go with this?
Last month, State Attorney General Chris Mays took it a step further, filing criminal charges against Kalshi on 20 counts of violating Arizona's gambling laws and a law that makes it illegal to bet on election outcomes. Kalshi hit back, asking a court to prevent the state from enforcing local gambling laws against the platform. Now the DOJ has gotten involved, arguing Kalshi is already regulated by the federal government. They say allowing states to do it would create a patchwork that Congress tried to eliminate.
So what's next?
In court this afternoon, attorneys for the Department of Justice, Kalshi, and the state of Arizona all facing off in front of a federal judge. The Kalshi attorneys were trying to stop their clients from being arraigned on criminal charges. That arraignment is set for 10 days from now.
It's kind of funny, though, looking at government saying that it's out there trying to protect its citizens from the horrors of gambling, when actually the worst odds, the worst casino racket out there is actually run by your government.
Hi, game day scratchers, please.
Here you go.
Ooh.
It all comes down to this. They need a miracle. Where will a little play take you? Game day scratchers from the California Lottery.
I mean, I tell you, it is rich that government is sitting here saying they have to protect us all from gambling, whether it be sports gambling that they need to regulate in their states, or this new form of gambling, this prediction markets. And yes. I mean, it's like they're literally selling the worst odds out there on lotto to people that and look at the advertising on that. They're trying to convince old people they could be like NFL Superman. Their minds. It's just nuts. But anyways, yeah, Leon, what are your thoughts on some of this prediction market stuff?
Well, I mean, I don't know what is wrong with prediction markets, quite frankly, and even the government don't think anything is wrong with it. It's only wrong when somebody else is doing it, as opposed to the bad odds they give you on those various lotto games that they're always promoting. Now, I think we are supposed to be free people, and if we are free people, we should be free to choose to gamble or not to gamble. If we wish to bet on whether a war is going to begin by a certain date, or we choose to believe who will win, we choose to bet on who will win the next presidential elections, all of those things are things that we should be free to bet on without interference from the government. Now, the problem here with these prediction markets now is becoming such a problem is that we have the federal regulation of these markets. It's through the Commodities Futures Trading Commission. They do have some regulatory power over these things, and now the states are trying to step in and also have this mishmash of regulations on the same markets. This is just going to cause all kind of problems, and what are we doing, Jason?
Yeah, I'm just trying to get this camera to refocus. Sorry.
Okay. You had me confused there for a second.
The camera's gone out of focus. That's okay. I just figured if I slowly brought this back in, it might actually. There it goes. I think it's better now.
Okay. So anyway. So the problem that we are really truly facing here is we have the absurdity of the government. Well, usually the state government. I'm not aware of the federal government running any lotto games, but certainly a multitude of states, nearly every state. I don't know how many of them, but nearly all the states run some lotto games. And that might be a good thing to research to see how many of them do. But yet they're telling us they want us to gamble, with the lotto. They want us
They
to
want
do
us
that.
to gamble when they're the house and are making all the money off.
But exactly, the house has its edge. They obviously do, and it's worse than some of the worst casinos in Las Vegas. And they're telling us it's good to gamble with them, but it's bad to gamble with somebody else. This is ridiculous. This is absolutely ridiculous. Either they say, well, no gambling at all, which will shut down the lotto, or we should be free to gamble and bet on the prediction markets if we so choose.
Yeah, the state loves to apply different rules to itself than everybody else and give itself monopolies wherever it can. But one of the things I did want to mention, though, that makes this a little different in some ways, you know, when you're betting in the stock market, you're actually tied into a company and you're providing them in some ways capital, I guess, you know, that they can use. I mean, that's the whole point of the stock in the first place, and then you're just transferring the shares after that. But you know, with the prediction market, kind of what you're doing is you're finding a way to signal, I guess, to the, you know, what the likelihood of something to happen is, right? And there's a value in that too, and that's what they're doing here. And so it does seem like you don't want to necessarily kill this because it could be a very useful tool. But you know, one of the problems though is potential insider interference, and this is one of the things. And I just want to play devil's advocate here, but suppose there's a bet on, let's say, for instance, what character is going to, you know, maybe if a character is going to exit a certain way in a show. And if everybody knows that there's a big bet riding on that, and then maybe somebody involved in that show, their relatives find out, they say, hey, look, I can make some money if I exit stage right instead of stage left. Because everybody's betting on this. Then you could potentially make a lot of money off of that, which would be kind of like a form of insider trading, I guess. And you know, to me, as a libertarian, I'd rather just have, look, buyer beware. I mean, we should all understand these are really stupid things to bet on, right? So if you just don't want to go bet on these things, then you're kind of, you know, doing it at your own risk. But there is a potential problem with that, and one of the things that worries some political leaders is the idea that, you know, hey, maybe if there's enough money on some sort of a race, maybe somebody takes a dive just so somebody can sweep up a few $1 million or something, you know, on a bet on one of these markets. So I don't know, you know, it does a few interesting questions.
Well, it's true. I will have to concede there are interesting issues there that you're raising. But, you know, I mean, while I think somebody could get away with that once, I don't think they could get away with it twice. Because if, say, for instance, Polymarket, which I see you have up there, is allowing these sort of rigged outcomes to occur, then after a while, nobody will want to do business with them. Nobody. If they know the system is rigged, why would you want to do business with Polymarket?
Well, you say that, but we keep reelecting the same politicians who have been fleecing us with, I can't believe they got the stock right again. You know, people like Nancy Pelosi, and you know, some of them are saying similar things about, you know, some of the people, you know, some people are making accusations like that about some people in Trump's family as well. So,
well, a true, valid point. However, I still think in the long term this will work out pretty bad for some place like Polymarket, or the other one I think is called She is the other one.
Those are the
in the long term. Yeah, in the short term, you could see things like this happening. Sure, Nancy Pelosi been around for a long time, and she probably has the best record of picking stocks than anybody else. God help us how that happened.
Yeah.
But I believe in the long term, these markets will work itself out. I don't think we need government regulation. I don't think we need any more government regulation, because these markets will work themselves out. Because sooner or later, if these markets are allowing rigged outcomes, that will become public information, and people start doing business with these people, which is the way it should be. Okay, because when you're selling bad products in any market, regardless if you're selling tomatoes, if you're selling bad tomatoes or any or oranges, nobody will buy from you. And this is what's going to happen here too.
Leon, you mentioned the long term, and unfortunately, we don't have a long term on the show tonight. So we're in a race against time, which is why we got to get to the California governor's race, our next topic here. And that's kind of an interesting turn of events have happened here. And so we've literally have a few interesting things happening, but an event got canceled because they didn't like the color of the participants that were going to wind up being in the debate. That's kind of how things function out here in California. So let me show you a quick video so you get caught up on some of the issues around this current California governor's race.
Tonight's debate in the hotly contested, California gubernatorial race is no longer happening. The University of Southern California canceled the forum after facing backlash for excluding candidates of color, including these 4 prominent Democrats you see here on your screen. They called on others to boycott the debate. The university invited 2 Republicans and 6 Democrats to participate using methodology developed by one of its political science professors. The school has defended this methodology.
So what we have here is a race is being won. Criteria are set ahead of time. What? Democrats, not liking the optics of what people look like who finished the race, decided to just reset the finish line. So let's hear a little more about it.
Those 4 total that were excluded called the criteria rigged and demanded a boycott. USC held firm right up until it didn't. Late last night, less than 24 hours before the debate was set to begin, the university pulled the plug, setting what it called a significant distraction from the issues that mattered to voters. And like the debate formula USC used did rank candidates on polling and fundraising, something that is customary.
Meanwhile, for the Republicans, they're actually looking like they're doing kind of good for a change here. It's not that they're getting much more support than normal. It's just that the Democrats are splitting their vote among a lot of candidates that they can't seem to decide who they want. Let's hear a little bit more about this.
Meanwhile, recent polling shows Republicans appear united behind their candidates who have a shot at claiming the top 2 spots in the primary, which means there would be no Democrat on the ballot in the general election. In the California governor's race, a crowded field, and for the first time, state Democrats made public their own polling, predicting a possible nightmare scenario for their party being locked out of the general election. In the top 5, the poll shows Republicans Steve Hilton and Riverside County Sheriff Chad Bianco at 16 and 14%. Democrats Congressman Eric Swalwell, Katie Porter, and Tom Steyer all coming in at 10%. 24% are undecided.
So what would this mean for the Democrats?
Democrats could be locked out because in California's primary system, only the top 2 vote getters in the June 2nd primary go on to compete in the November general election.
And so there you have it. But I just thought that was hysterical. The idea that, we couldn't even have a debate because they couldn't listen to the people unless they had the right racial mix up there on the stage. It's just nuts. I mean, it's not like they got to have an extra debate, right? I mean, you could have that debate and then have another debate later on if you said, okay, well, we need the more inclusive debate, right? But this was criteria that was set up ahead of time. Anyway, just nuts. But this is the way things happen in California, and they did this with the UC standards as well for getting into the colleges with the SAT scores. They threw them out because they didn't like the way that the finish line was being crossed. So
this demonstrates how insane the Democratic Party have become. So just because we don't have quote unquote the right color, and I just hate that expression, the right candidate of color. Oh God, it so upsets my stomach. I want to throw up when I hear terms like that. People of color, candidate of color, and all this damn nonsense. But the point is though, the insanity of these people is beyond measure. Seriously. How could you say we have an objective standard, okay, fundraising and polling, and we're going to use that to determine who should be in the debate and who should not be? Anybody who make it, they go debate. Who don't make it, they don't make it. What is the injustice here that they're trying to correct? What is an objective standard? Like, these people don't know anything about objective standards anymore. They only think about, these poor people of color, people like me. Poor people of color, we probably have some implicit bias, and that's why I didn't make it. So we have to cancel the whole debate. Nobody should watch this debate because the right people are not talking to the people. We have to get some more colorization of the candidates, and then it will be good. Who said it's going to be good? Who said it would be better than what we have right now? Who said so?
Think about how offended, like if Elizabeth Warren were running for this job and then she found out that they weren't having the debate because they weren't respecting her Native American heritage.
Imagine that.
Or lack thereof.
Or lack thereof. And this is the absurdity of all of these things. Elizabeth Warren at one time identified as a person of color by claiming Native American heritage, and all of a sudden she was getting all these perks and benefits. As a matter of fact, Harvard had her listed as their only Native American professor or some kind of thing like that. And all of a sudden we found out, well, poor old Elizabeth, as Pocahontas, as Trump used to call her, had one, maybe a whole drop, 1,000th or something like that of Native American background in like 10 generations ago or some kind of thing like that. They might have had some one Native American ancestor or some crap like that, 20 generations. I don't even know how much it was, but it was quite a ways away. And suddenly, all of a sudden, we don't hear about her Native Americanness anymore. Once the grift was exposed. Isn't that amazing? She identified as such, and all of a sudden the grift was exposed, and suddenly she's not anymore.
And that goes to the point. I mean, in this age where, men can identify as women and,
yes,
everything goes, why isn't Elizabeth Warren out there still identifying as a Native American?
Just my point.
Who cares about the science? I mean, who cares about the DNA test that she took? I mean, if she feels like she's a Native American,
why not? Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
I mean, there are Native Americans who get get some nice money because some of these reservations have been having casinos on them, and they've been real good, some of them, and stuff like that. Maybe I should identify as a Native American, member of a Native American tribe. I should be able to get some of that money too. If men could be in women's sports, why can't I identify as a member of a tribe and reap some of the benefits? I think that's only fair, don't you?
Yeah. Well, speaking of fair, we're running out of time, so I want to jump to our last topic here, our Knucklehead Noise Patrol, and it almost takes us back full circle because we're starting to talk about a war in a region that is dominated by Islam, and that's not really the issue here, but it's it does feel like there's a little bit of symmetry there, but yeah, some of the crazy, we started out, we covered this thing 3 or 4 weeks ago on the show, and I remember I put out the video, the mission accomplished thing with George Bush. And I said, you may be celebrating a little bit early here.
Yeah.
And they were talking about, hey, on day 1 we got the leader, and now we're in day 30 or something. I don't know what we're in.
Like that. Yes.
Yeah,
I think the past 4 weeks, I think, to be honest.
Yeah, and it sounds like we've somehow gone full circle to now where we've lost control of the oil market, at least temporarily, in the world.
Yes.
And that's causing Donald Trump to get mad, and the rhetoric has kind of gone a little bit into the stratosphere. So let me play a video to kind of show you where we're at now, and I think this will give you a flavor for it.
And we do begin tonight with that dramatic mission to rescue a U.S. airman trapped in the treacherous mountains of Iran for nearly 2 days. The F-15 fighter jet was shot down by Iran. Both U.S. service members ejected safely. The pilot was rescued on Friday, but a weapons systems officer in the backseat of that aircraft remained missing. Iran launched their own search, offering a $60,000 reward for anyone who found the American alive. President Trump sharing the remarkable news overnight that the service member, while injured, was safe and sound. This was a high-stakes and a high-risk operation.
Pilot rescued behind enemy lines. This should have been great news coming out of Easter for the Trump administration. But Trump got on his social media and started saying some stuff like he said that Tuesday would be Bridge and Power Plant Day, and he said, "You effing bastards better open the Straits of Hormuz," and then praise to Allah. So, and then he followed that up a couple days later with another one that talked about possibly ending the entire Iranian civilization. So,
well, as the deadline approaches, the U.S. and Israel are launching a new wave of attacks across Iran.
So far, strikes have been reported on multiple bridges, killing at least 2 people, according to Iran's state media. In response to these new rounds of attacks, Iranian officials are reportedly calling on civilians to form human chains around some of the key sites that are under threat today.
Meanwhile, another intense wave of strikes was reported on the country's key oil export hub, Karg Island.
so that's kind of how things are going. And the funny thing was, though, he also did a media appearance with the Easter Bunny. And he didn't limit it to just discussing Easter. He also spent time talking about the military with the Easter Bunny up there next to him, clapping along.
But I just want to say we have a great military. We have the greatest military, the most powerful military any place in the world. You saw what happened with Venezuela. And it's an honor. I built it in my first term, and I didn't know I was going to be using it this much in my second term, but it's my honor. And they're the greatest people on earth. Our warriors are the greatest fighters on earth. And what about the rescue that took place yesterday? What about that?
The Easter Bunny hasn't simply played a conspicuous role with the Trump administration. If you'll recall back to the Biden administration, he had a little bit of a role in handling Joe Biden, too.
Pakistan should not, and Afghanistan should be people.
Oh, the Easter Bunny, Mr. President.
So there you go. But yeah, these quotes are a little bit disturbing, though, because I mean, one, the timing was terrible. I mean, he could have been coming out of the weekend on a very positive, PR footing, and instead he wound up turning it into something where suddenly we're worried about. Are we talking about genociding an entire country? And I mean, here's the other quote. Let me see. It's my computer's dragging just a little bit, but now, just to be fair, he says at the top of the thing, a whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. I don't want that to happen. That was on Tuesday, the day he set for the deadline. But then at the end, he says, God bless the great people of Iran. And I mean, it's just, I mean,
after he killed them off, God is going to bless.
Well, I mean, this really does bring up a sort of serious issue, though, is that, I've seen this happen ever since Donald Trump came on the scene, and he says things, and then his supporters, and I mean, I've always voted libertarian. I mean, I certainly didn't think Trump was the worst choice. I thought the Democrat was always the worst choice on the ticket. But the problem, one of the biggest problems I've had with Donald Trump is his lack of precision in wording, and then everybody just has to piece together like some kind of a puzzle what it was he said afterwards, and then try to justify why they're doing what they're doing in supporting him because, well, you know what he means. This is 4D chess or something else. And I mean, when you're talking about nuking, or, well, he didn't say nuke, but he says a whole civilization could die tonight, like wiping out. I want our leader to be absolutely precise in what he's saying. I don't want to be guessing about what we're doing in this situation. What are your thoughts on this, Leon?
Well, well, as you know, I voted for Donald Trump. I didn't vote for him the very first time, but the second time I voted, and he lost, supposedly, and I voted for him in 2024. So, but sometimes it does be so hard to defend this man, and I'm not here to defend him. Donald Trump does say some of the most lunatic things you could think about. Seriously. I mean, this is the president of the United States, and you, like you say, you want some precision in words. I don't want the president of the United States to be threatening genocide to anybody, okay? Because he'll be doing that in my name, okay?
Exactly.
Okay? So we are, yes. No, we are at war. We are at war. I understand that in war, people die. But I don't want you to be indiscriminately killing anybody. I don't want that. Okay? But he has said some of the most lunatic things that you could imagine. Things that you wouldn't even dream of trying to even defend, even trying to explain. What are you talking about ending a civilization? So what are you going to do? Kill 92 million people and turn Iran into a parking lot? What exactly are you talking about? So
think of the position too that he's putting you in if you are a Trump supporter, if you are somebody who's there and they're saying, I totally believe in this guy, and then he says that and you stand by him. And what if he does pull the trigger and all of those people die?
Yes.
And you stood behind him while he said that. I mean, it's one thing if a leader doesn't give you any indication and then they push a button and you had no way of knowing. But I mean, if somebody
Right.
says they're going to do something and you say, well, I have faith that he's not going to do that, and then he does. I mean, you know, I don't know how a lot of people would live with themselves, quite frankly, who are, you know, on the right. You know, I think a lot of them probably take their religion fairly seriously. And if they saw themselves as, hey, I supported, you know, this saying we were going to kill all these people, and then we did, you know.
Yeah.
So
I mean, Trump's method of communication just makes it hard for people who honestly overall believe in his agenda. Makes it very difficult for people like me and others to defend and promote his agenda when he makes statements like these. This is just unbelievable to me. I mean, Joe Biden was bad enough, okay, but I don't think I ever heard Joe Biden threatening to even though the man was a half dead corpse. But I didn't hear him ever threatening anybody to wipe out a civilization, you know, or anything like that. I mean, you know, but the point is, though, the thing that we cannot leave this thing without making the statement, though. This is the president of the United States, and this person is supposed to be the leader of the free world. And I don't think any leader of the free world, whether he's a Republican or a Democrat, or maybe one day a libertarian, should be threatening to commit genocide, even if, well, he didn't really mean it. Oh, well, it doesn't appear so, whatever. They should not be doing this. At times we have to go to war. There's no doubt about that. But we're not going to commit genocide in that war. And this is what Trump is saying, that he's going to end the civilization. You could only do that through genocide. And then it's bad enough that we see our allies being accused of doing that very same thing, accused of genocide in Gaza. It's nonsense. We could debate that another time. But we don't want people, the leader of the free world, our president, to be making statements like this in public. I mean, even if he made it in private and it became public, it's still problematic. We just don't need the leader of free world. We need the leader of free world to be more measured. I mean, his words could move markets. We know this. The things he supports could move markets. We know this. So we don't want genocide being committed in our name, in my name, or any one of our fellow citizens. I don't want that. I really don't.
And more precisely, though, too, it's that as a people, how can we test our principles if we're not using precise words? If we're just saying, well, you know what I meant. I mean, how do we test if we're becoming monsters at some point, if we're never very precise about what we're even saying, and so that we can actually test our ideas clearly before we get into doing something? You know, this is one of the biggest problems I have with Trump, is this lack of precision, and it makes it hard to pin down exactly who he is and where he is on a lot of these things. I mean, we can see where the Democrats are. That's what, and they scare the crap out of me. So I mean, you know, but, and fortunately I can vote libertarian, so I do. But the Democrats are very clear in what they say about some of the crazy crap they believe about being able to, you know, trans kids and not, you know, being able to essentially talk to your kids about some of this, you know, gender affirming care and not talk to the parents about it, you know, all this kind of crazy stuff that you see happening here in California and some of these other blue states. You know, the idea of just a welcome mat with, you know, welfare to migrants. I mean, I'm all for open borders under like Milton Friedman, but you can't have a welfare state. We talked about that a million times on the show.
Of course,
and,
of course, yes.
and you know, just the crazy things that they, you know, claim to believe. It's just like, okay, that's a no-go. So I can understand how a lot of people wind up on Trump, but I just don't know why he can't be a little more precise about what he's saying. Oh,
be more measured in his language. That's what he needs to be, more measured in his language. I mean, God, come on. Man is president of the United States. Please speak like it.
Yeah. It's funny too. You know, you look at the comparison, and I mean, like people talk about Trump is going to have a UFC fight on the White House lawn. Well, Joe Biden had, you know, transsexuals going topless on the White House lawn, right? So, no, I mean, this is the binary of choice that we have as a country at the moment. I mean, I'll if I'm choosing on those two, I'll take the UFC fight.
Yeah, me too.
There you go. Well, Leon, I think we've reached the end of the show. You got any last thoughts on the way out, or?
I would like to go back to the beginning of the show, which was the Liberty quote, and Jefferson in particular was speaking about freedom of religion or freedom of spiritual choices, which I find very enlightening. And I think this freedom, this choice that we make about our spiritual self is part of that three-legged stool that makes successful countries. Okay, we need freedom of political choices. We need freedom of economic choices, and we need freedom of spiritual choices. And I think that's a very important part of any successful nation. So I think Jefferson, though he was specifically speaking about the freedom of religion, the freedom of our spiritual choices, but it's just part of that three-legged stool that makes successful nations. And I think we should highlight these things as we go forward, because we need freedom of choice, true freedom of choice in every sector of our society, so that we can have a successful society, hopefully with a smaller government than the one that we have right now.
I think with that, we'll wrap it up. So before our next show, think about what you can do in your community to advance the ball for liberty, because as we talk about it, I mean, these issues are coming your way, whether they be anti-Sharia laws or laws where they want to force you to listen to the
call to prayer.
Yeah, call to prayer. Either way, they're coming at you, and if you're not on the ball for liberty here, if you're not helping to move the ball forward for it, then we are going to lose our rights in one way or the other. So think about what you can do in your community for the next show. And until then, stay tuned and stay free.
Yes, indeed. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, always and forever.
Thank you for listening to the Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast. Find us on Facebook, Rumble, YouTube, your favorite podcast network, and at knuckleheadsofliberty.com.